take us back to the beginning. Was it magic or was it?
Magic. It's, yeah, well, as a kid, growing up in Hartford, Connecticut, and used to deliver newspapers to Mark Twain's house and shine shoes downtown Hartford, Connecticut when I was 10 years old, and hang around in pool halls, learned how to do trick shots with pool balls. Had an uncle who owned a gun factory in Meriden, Connecticut. Father and my uncle were both World War II war heroes, Silver Star, Purple Hearts, and medals, and they were tricksters. They were pranksters and ex-hockey players. They grew up in Iron Range, Minnesota, and street smart fighters, know how to protect themselves, and they wanted to pass that on to their kids, and so there was a lot of stories that got passed on, and Uncle had a shrunken head and samurai armor and this amazing collection of armor and howitzer cannon in the garage and unbelievable stuff. Bomb shelter that would just blow your mind. Dad was a Frank Lloyd Wright student, studied under Frank Lloyd Wright in Minnesota after he got out of WW2. And he designed the houses in Connecticut that I grew up in, my uncle's house as well. Being a trickster, then going through high school and being a class clown, and to bring levity to boring classrooms, I'd joke around, and stayed with me all my life. And people were like, "You'll never make a living doing, you grow up, you gotta do it." And I was like, "Hey, I'm not gonna grow up unless I have to." And so I just traveled out to San Francisco, went to Florida. I was in San Francisco for a couple of years after I got out of high school, and then went to Florida. In Florida, I started waiting tables after working a couple construction jobs. This friend offered me a job working waiting tables, and I thought, I'll give it a shot. And I thought, hey, I'd heard that Johnny Carson got to start doing magic in the Borscht circuit, and Dick Cavett had been a magician, close-up magician in the Borscht circuit. And I thought, I know some magic tricks. I'll do a couple tricks for the people after dinner. Hey, clean your plates, folks. I'll do some tricks for you. And I used to treat people like kids, and people would start coming back and say, hey, we want you to do some new magic tricks. Come on, we want something new. So I was pushed to go to magic shops and learn new magic. People in magic shops though in Florida didn't want to share anything with me. They didn't want to sell me what I wanted to buy, which I respect now because it made me crave it even more. They wouldn't let me open a book. I wanted to spend $35 in 1973 on a magic book when I was making that much money, and I was spending my money at the beach. I'd never spent $35 on a book in my life. What's that, $35? You got to be kidding! I can buy a Dover book for $10, $12 on magic. But there were some books, other books that I was interested in, and they said, no, you can't read the index. You can't read to see what the contents of this book is. Do you want it or don't you? It's $35. Well, what kind of tricks is it about? Well, it's a crapshoot. Roll the dice. Just give us the $35, see if you got something good. If not, do it again. I was like, son of a bitch, this sucks, but at the same time, it was like it had a hold on me, and I wanted to grab a hold of it. And luckily, I made some good connections. I met this one guy, Jim Cellini, who was a friend called up the restaurant and said, hey, get your butt over to this restaurant I'm working at. There's a band, and the lead singer is a magician. And this guy gets credited as being the king of the street conjurers, Jim Cellini. He's an amazing magician. But he introduced me to Tony Slidini. Slidini is, many people know, he was a master, the godfather of close-up magic. And Dick Cavett produced him in the 60s. I saw him put coins through the table in the 60s as a kid, about 10 years old. And then I saw this guy, Cellini, doing it for a group of magicians. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. I'm seeing this trick again where the coins go through the table. And I was like, hey, where did you learn this? And he was telling me his teacher in New York City, who he'd studied with for years. And I said, look, whatever it takes, I want to go to New York City and learn from this guy. What's the odds? He says, I'll introduce you to him over the phone, and talk to him over the phone. And I started getting his books and reading his books, and he'd book me to come over. When I come up to New York, I'd stay with a friend over near Central Park, and I'd go 9:30 over to his apartment on West 45th Street and stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and do that for a couple weeks, 5 nights a week for a couple weeks. And I'd go back down to Florida and I'd work on his magic that he was teaching me. And then took close-up magic to Colorado. I worked in Aspen for a season with a guy named Bob Sheets and Steve Spill at a place called the Jolly Jester. And Aspen had a lot of other history of entertainment businesses, you know, and John Belushi was spending a lot of time up there at the time. Steve Martin has a place there, Jack Nicholson's, Jack, everybody knows Jack and Aspen. But I got into street performing there. There's a little mall, and we used to gather a crowd out in the mall and say, look, you know, you guys want to see more magic? Follow me back to the restaurant. And that's where the good guys are. The guys at the restaurant are much better than me. That's how we kind of kept the restaurant business going. There's like 110 restaurants in Aspen. So we played Pied Piper. Our hands would get cold, but I wanted to do more street performing. So after Aspen, I traveled around the country and did my first tour street performing. First show I ever did street performing, El Paso, Texas. My back is to about a 20-story apartment building. I'm in the park facing north. The crowd is facing south. I see the whole crowds. I'm doing the cups and balls for all these Mexicans, and I see all of a sudden everyone's head look up and then scream and put their head down, and they all ran past me. This is the first show I ever did street performing, and a guy commits suicide, jumped off the roof of a building. The whole crowd, I didn't know it, but I just saw the crowd go flop, and the crowd ran, screaming in Spanish, and I had no idea what had happened, what they said. Crazy.
This was where?
First street show I ever did in El Paso, Texas.
El Paso, Texas. Now, the thing, you're still doing magic at this time, right?
Johnny, can you just get your chair to your right a little bit further?
Right.
Right there.
Is Valeria all right moving around back there? Let's see.
I didn't see her last time, but...
Okay.
I can close the curtain.
Can she close the curtain a little? I think it's, yeah, a little bit would be great. Thanks. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, so in El Paso, you're doing the magic at this point, and from there, you still haven't gone to the, you know. Well, let's take it up from El Paso.
Okay. So after that, I was traveling around. I had a little BMW 2002. And I was traveling around the country with a guy named Steve Spill, who's got a little place now out in Santa Monica called Magicopolis. Steve was a great sleight of hand, innovative performer, magician, very funny, creative guy. He and I traveled around the U.S. His father was the general manager of the Magic Castle and also a mentalist, did a mentalism act there in the Houdini Seance room. Great guy. Sandy Spillman passed away. Great folks. We got back after that trip. I performed the whole summer in Boulder, Colorado, and I heard someone one day saying, "There's a guy 2 blocks away doing the same act."
Hey, Rob. Do
Yeah.
that, please. Thank you. Can you say that sentence again, Johnny?
There's guys.
So I was doing the cups and balls for a crowd and doing some coin magic, rolling the coins and doing some rope magic, and I heard someone in the crowd say, "There's someone 2 blocks away doing the same act." I thought, this is nuts. What are you talking about, someone doing the same act? I had a friend watch my equipment, and I walked over, and I saw this guy doing all these lines out of my act. And I was thinking, how dare you? You bum. I said, if you're going to rip off my material, go do it somewhere else in another city, another town. Don't do it right where I live. You're a dirtbag. And the guy says, you ain't got a copyright on anything. He says, I'll do whatever I want, and you're nothing but a punk anyways. And I said, punk this. And I hurt my hand. So I never hit anybody again after that. From then on, I used my change bag. And I had this reputation of, okay, watch out for Johnny with his Scooty bag. Here he comes with his Scooty bag. And then I didn't want to have that reputation, so I said, I got to stop. Stop this. People are going to rip you off, but they can't take who you are. They can't take who I am. They can take my material, but people know where it comes from. Anyway, so I thought, I have to have something a little more different that's not just magic. And there was something about, when I started with flashing back on sideshows, and then I started eating fire at nighttime to gather a crowd. And it was working well, and I liked this gypsy character that I was starting to work with. So I was speaking broken English that I kind of adopted from Slidini, and I wanted to do this character, and I had 4 holes in my ear pierced. Nobody had multiple piercings in 1977. No, 1977, if you had, for a guy to have 2 earrings, it was nuts. I mean, if you had one, and then it was like, in 77, it was like, all right, is it the left ear or the right ear? Are you gay? Are you straight? Well, what's the deal? So I said, hey, this is crazy. I put 4 of them. I used to tell people I did them all at the same time. I used a fork and a potato. I held the potato back, I stood in front of a tree and went, and people would go, no, you're crazy. I go, yeah, so what?